Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good. I'm not feeling the excitement quite yet, but I'll give you guys another minute to gear up. Let's see, who do we have before we? Yeah, okay. Looks like everyone's here, and everyone's admitted. So hello again to those who just dropped in. Good to see you all. Sorry for the late start, but we will get everything done. I think we'll still stop at 12 and we'll make up the 15 minutes on the discussion boards. Please don't hesitate to post any questions or comments or insights that you might have for the benefit of the entire class. And I will answer. Okay. So I promised you, well, first of all, you all got the midterm scores, and I hope you're pleased with them. Again, you all did really pretty well, and but I encourage you to come and talk to me. Not come and talk to me, but talk to me through Zoom if you want to discuss the answers. But we will go through the exam right now, as I promised. So hopefully this will clear everything up if you guys had any questions. Here we go. I've got the midterm right here. And I'll read it out and go through it with you guys. I didn't want you guys to keep a copy because every once in a while I reuse a question. Maybe I shouldn't worry so much about that. In any event, we had 8 questions and an hour to do them. And I think that was pretty good. Let's see. That was a pretty good amount of time for the questions. You guys didn't feel too stressed out? Okay, I'm going to gallery view so I can see you all. No one was overwhelmed. Good. Okay, so 8 questions. Number 1, how accurate does the debtor's name need to be on a financing statement? And the answer to that is the search logic test. That yes, you are required to use the official name, be it a driver's license or the corporate name on the document, the organizing document. But the core is the search logic test. It doesn't have to be perfectly accurate, but it has to be sufficient so that the financing statement turns up when you search under the accurate legal name. So as long as you talked about the search logic test, you got full points. Let's see, number 2, PNC Bank filed a financing statement against its debtor, Gummy LLC, candy company. The PNC filed a financing statement against its debtor to perfect a security interest on the debtor's inventory of gummy candy. The financing statement gave the secured party's name as PND rather than PNC. Is the financing statement sufficient? Yeah, that's fine, because the secured party's name really doesn't matter. You got to put something down there, but it can never be seriously misleading. So this error is not a problem. The financing statement is still sufficient. Some of you, and I hate when this happens, feel sorry for you, but it happens to all of us, but a couple of you thought that the question number 2 here was about the debtor's name, and it's about the secured party's name. So anyway, that's just an error in reading the question, and it happens from time to time. So number 3, what are the statutory elements for the perfection of a security interest? And that is attachment, and then some additional step. such as filing a financing statement, getting control, or in some cases, perfection happens automatically. Let's see, number 4. Does a debtor need to have an absolute ownership right in collateral in order for a security interest to attach? And the answer is no. You do not need an absolute outright ownership. Any rights in the collateral will do. And we had that one case about the cattle, where the one person, one guy had a right to a portion of the proceeds. Well, he didn't own the cattle entirely, but he did have this right in the portion of the proceeds upon their sale. So as long as you have some rights, that's enough. Those are the rights that are going to be the collateral, whatever they are. Number 5, we're halfway through. Imagine that a security agreement describes the collateral as all inventory owned by debtor. Will the security interest attach only to the inventory that the debtor owned at the moment the agreement was signed, or will it attach to inventory that is acquired later by the debtor? And the answer is that it will apply to inventory acquired later. Typically, you need the after acquired language. But with respect to inventory and accounts receivable, you don't, because it is assumed that the intent was to capture after acquired inventory as well, due to the high turnover rate of inventory. So the answer is it will attach to after acquired inventory as well. Number 6. Where is the sole proprietorship located for purposes of filing a financing statement? And that is in the state where the individual resides. The sole proprietorship is indistinguishable from the individual. So wherever the person lives, that's the state in which you file. Stop me if you have any questions. Number 7. Is it sufficient to describe collateral as all of debtor's assets in a financing statement? Sure, that's fine. Not allowed in a security agreement, but just fine with respect to a financing statement. Number 8. Provide an example of a security interest that perfects automatically upon attachment. And most of you gave purchase money security interest in consumer goods as the example, and that got full credit. Others of you said the sale of a promissory note, which was a little more sophisticated. I was impressed, but that's absolutely correct as well. Okay, so that's that. I thought it was a pretty fair exam, just to kind of test a few different areas, make sure that you are absorbing this material, and that's that. The final exam will be quite different. It'll be lengthier hypotheticals. You can go online at the library and see many examples of my final exams for secure transactions. And I certainly recommend you, as we get closer to the final exam, to do those exams, or at least go through them and outline answers or something. I think that's the best way to prepare for any exam, is to do practice exams. But it's not going to be short answer, it's going to be essay.
I have a quick question, Professor.
Good.
For the question describing all the debtor's assets, is that sufficient for the financing statement? You said yes for the financing statement and no for the security agreement. Why would it not be for the security agreement, and then what would be sufficient or necessary?
Yeah. All of debtor's assets is not sufficient in a security agreement because it's super generic. And super generic descriptions of collateral is insufficient for a security agreement. You can't say all debtors' assets or all debtors' property or all debtors' things. You got to break it up a little bit. You can still take a security interest in all the debtors' assets. You just got to list it out category by category.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Professor, for number 6,
Yeah.
for sole proprietorship, what would the answer be if the sole proprietor was the secured party rather than just a debtor or the, yeah.
Well, if there's a secured party, so you let's say you have a business, a sole proprietorship that sells televisions. You make televisions in your garage, and you sell them on credit. So you're the secured party, and you want to file a financing statement against the purchasers who buy them from you. So if that were the case, you still you're going to file where the debtor is located. So you have to find out who the debtor is and where that debtor is located. The nature of the secured party, where they are, and the type of business they are is irrelevant to where you file.
Okay.
Does that make sense, James?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was just, I guess the question was just a little vague when I was going through it in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts?
You can't see my video, so I raised my
Haley, I
hand.
know you're there. Yes.
Ashley just messaged me saying she was trying to get into the Zoom, but that she needed permission or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think that maybe I need to admit her. Yeah. Okay. Ashley, Kenny, you guys there? Ashley,
See, I'll ask her.
it looks like she's just connecting. Okay, there she is. Ashley, you're in?
Hi, thank you. Sorry, it keeps saying that you needed to let me in.
Yeah, I did. I do have to admit, you guys, you're right, and I didn't see that you were in the waiting room there. My apologies, and we just completed going through the midterm. So I'm glad to go through it. If you want to hang on after the class ends and hang on, I'm glad to go through it again with you and Kenny, if you want. Just take a few minutes.
Okay. Otherwise, if you can share the recording somehow, I can always go back and see the beginning.
Yeah, there's that too. Okay, all right. Yeah, that's right. And I did record the first our first class, and I'm recording this one, and I'm just figuring out how to post them. But I will get them up. I'm going to get them up this week. Promise. Okay. Let me make a note here so I actually follow through with my promise. All right. Yeah, and as far as the final exam goes, nothing really changes for us. It's not going to be in class as I'd originally planned. It'll be a take-home, but it'll still be the same essay exam, and it'll still be open book. So nothing really changes for us. I think maybe all your exams are going to be open book. It's another thing that the faculty is debating. I'm a fan of it because you really can't control it is the problem. I mean, it used to be in days of yore, you could just simply say, hey, we're on the honor system here, and you could be sure that no one would cheat. I mean, was there ever such a day? I don't know. But that's one approach. Another approach is to threaten you guys with expulsion if you cheat. It's kind of a heavy-handed approach, but true. So I think just it's not fair to punish the honest by not allowing it to be open book. So anyway, we'll have an open book, this online exam, but nothing else will change. Okay. Any questions? Shall we move on? wrap up the assignment on purchase money security interests and get on to control. So we had one more problem to do. That is problem 77 about Hans racing equipment. And so let me go to my little list here. And Lauren, might I call on you?
Yes, you can. I have my
Okay.
books, so.
Yeah, you got your book. Good, good. Yeah, I mean, everything's shut down. I mean, I'm glad you got it because you can't get into the building anymore. Faculty are kind of upset about that too because we got notice like, just yesterday, I think, that was the last day and not everyone could rush down to campus to get their things.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you got
it was interesting to be there. It was very empty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Spooky.
all right.
Yeah.
So problem 77.
I think the only other person in the building was probably Professor Garlock. He's always there. Okay, yeah, problem 77. Go on.
Okay. All right. So Hans Racing Equipment bought much of its inventory from Standard Auto Wholesales Inc., which always took a purchase money security interest in the goods sold to Hans, and which filed a financing statement on the same day. Hans also borrowed money from the matching Dishes National Bank to finance the purchase of inventory from wholesalers, part of which was used to pay off Standard Auto. MD&B filed a financing statement claiming a security interest in Hans's inventory. On March 28th, Hans contracted to buy $3,000 in goods from Standard, making a down payment of $1,500 and giving Standard a purchase money security interest in the goods for the rest. On that same day, he borrowed the $1,500 down payment from MD&B and also gave the bank a purchase money security interest in the same goods. Both creditors know of the other, so they both sent written notice to each other. The goods were delivered to Hans on April 2nd. Which creditor has priority? So what I did here is I looked under section 9, 324G to see when there's the conflicting purchase money security interests. And I determined that, so under there, it states that the priority goes to the seller. So the Standard was considered the seller or vendor, as some people might say. So, and then MD&B would be the one who was giving the money to Hans to purchase from the seller. So therefore, under 324G, priority goes to the seller, which would be Standard. So Standard would have priority.
That was perfect. That was perfect. Yes, and there's that rule that rhymes, vendor beats lender.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we have two perfected purchase money security interests in inventory. Both of them did what you have to do to ensure your super priority. That is, file a financing statement before delivery and give notice to other secured parties.
Mm-hmm.
Before delivery, so they both did the right thing to get super priority. So then how do you determine priority? If you have two people with super priority, the rule is the vendor beats the lender, the person that extended the credit, the purchase price, will beat the enabling loan purchase money secured party. Exactly right. What if they were two enabling loan secured purchase money secured parties? What if they went out and borrowed $1,500 from one bank and $1,500 from another bank, and then used the two amounts to buy $3,000 in, or let's say they bought $6,000 worth of inventory from, no, we can do the full amount, that's fine, either way. Let's say they bought $3,000 worth of equipment inventory, and then the and then the debtor goes bankrupt. Well, now you don't have a vendor versus lender. You have two lenders who are purchase money secured parties. And in that case, G, 324G gives us the answer as well. In that case, you just you default to the first to file or perfect rule. So you would look at the two banks and just figure out who filed their financing statement first, and that bank would win.
Yep.
So that's a good priority rule for a contest between two purchase money secured parties. Vendor beats lender, and if they're the same type of purchase money secured parties, first to file or perfect. All right. Feeling good about that? Very nice. Well done, Lauren. There's one more problem in this chapter or this part, but we're going to come back and do it later because it has to do with something called consignments, and we're going to talk about consignments in a separate assignment, and we'll come back and do 78 then. So that means we're going to skip ahead to 79, and this takes us into a new section. I have foreshadowed it many times. We're getting now to, we're going to learn the details of it, and that is control, which is another method of perfection. And it only applies to certain types of collateral, primarily deposit accounts, which is what Article 9 calls bank accounts, deposit accounts, and investment property, securities, stocks, shares in a company. You want to get control over these types of collateral. And in some, in the case of deposit accounts, it's the only way, or so they say. This is actually, there is, and we'll get to it when we talk about proceeds. There is a way to, other than control, to get to perfect your security interest in deposit accounts. But the general rule is that you can only perfect a security interest in deposit accounts by getting control. That's the general rule. You can't perfect by filing a financing statement. It doesn't work. You file a financing statement and list deposit accounts as the collateral, it's worthless. It does nothing. You have to get control of deposit accounts. Now there is one little exception to that. We'll talk more about it when we get to proceeds, but if you have a perfected security interest in original collateral, and then you sell it, and you get cash, and you put it in your bank account, those are proceeds. And if you had a perfected security interest in the original collateral, you're going to have a perfected security, the secured party will have a perfected security interest in the proceeds as well, which happen to be in the form of a deposit account once that money's deposited. So that's the kind of wrinkle there, the exception to that general rule. You can get a perfected security interest in deposit accounts as proceeds of original collateral, but otherwise you need control. Now, when we're talking about securities, now investment property, you have the choice. You can file a financing statement, and that does work to perfect the security interest in investment property. So that's okay. But you can also perfect a security interest by getting control over the investment property. And in fact, we'll see that having control is preferable to just filing a financing statement. We'll see in the priority rules that anyone with control will defeat anyone that is just perfected by a financing statement. So, and we'll see this crop up here and there, that there are options as to how to perfect. And you have to understand that one method of perfection may be superior to another method of perfection. That's not always true, but sometimes it is. So you have to be strategic about which method of perfection you select. Okay. So with that quick overview. Let's take a 2-minute break. I need to go refill my water glass. I should just bring the bottle next time. So I'll be right back, and then we'll dive into investment property. You can share each other's pets.
I do have to go get my cat because she's very cute. I need everyone to see her.
This is Mumford.
This is her.
Oh.
She's being held. She's really mad. I just got her this catnip mouse, so she'll be happy now. Kyle.
This is Mike.
Oh.
I don't have a pet, but I bought a new plant, so.
Is that a bonsai tree?
It's a small money tree.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I can keep it alive, so I'm doing okay.
All right, let's start by looking at the definitions for securities, and those all those definitions are found in Article 8 of the UCC, which deals with securities. So let's go to 8.102. Yes, so there are different types, as I mentioned before. This can get pretty complicated. We're not doing a deep dive into security interest and investment property because there are many different flavors of investment property. You have securities, which are stocks. And this is something that I see frequently is people confusing securities with security interest. And of course, it's understandable that they get confused. But securities is one thing, that's stocks, and security interest, of course, is another. But you guys know that. Okay, 8.102. So they're different flavors. There are certificated securities, and those are dealt with in one way. There are uncertificated securities, and those are dealt with in another way. And there are entitlement accounts, which are brokerage accounts. So let's look at some of the definitions here. So certificated security is, of course, a security that's represented by a certificate, stock certificate. You don't always need that. In fact, I've set up a number of companies, and usually if I set up a company and the client is cost conscious, I don't create stock certificates. You don't need to, right? You just keep a record of who owns what shares on the ledger. You don't need the stock certificates. However, clients love stock certificates. If you really want to make them happy and they don't mind spending a few extra bucks for your time and the fancy paper, they love when you print up those fancy certificates and you put their logo in there and their name and they own 100 shares. They have a lot of fun with that. So, but legally, it's not required. But the way that you perfect a security interest in certificated securities versus uncertificated securities can vary slightly. But what we're going to focus on is not the certificated securities, but the brokerage fund, because typically that's how people own stocks. They don't own it. I mean, who in this Zoom room has, paper stock certificates on their desk or in their safe deposit box or framed on the wall? It's a nice gift, but I don't. I own a bunch of stocks, but I don't have the stock certificates. I own them through a broker, a brokerage account. And that's how most people hold stocks. And so that's what we're going to focus on, is just how do you take a security interest in stocks and for someone who has stocks in an account. So let's learn the language first. Broker is definition 3 here in 8102. That's the person that operates the brokerage, of course. The brokerage account is called a securities entitlement. An entitlement. We don't call it a brokerage account. We call it an entitlement. And so if I own stocks, I would have an entitlement. I'd be the entitlement holder. That's definition 7. So the customer who owns stocks in a brokerage account is the entitlement holder, and you have an entitlement to the securities that are held by the broker. So that's kind of the those are the terms we need to know. Also, securities intermediary. What is the securities intermediary? Go down to, yeah, here it is. Number 14 is the broker. It's another name for the broker. It is a person, including a bank or broker, that in the ordinary course of business maintains securities accounts for others. So the securities intermediary is the broker. Okay. So you've got the account, you've got the entitlement, which is the right to own the stocks. You have the entitlement holder, which is the customer who owns the stocks, and then you have the securities intermediary, who is the broker. Okay, so those are some of the terms. So now, how do you go about perfecting a security interest? Well, by control. And how do you get control? And that is also in Article 8 and 8106, control. And here you see the methods of control differ according to the type of securities you have, whether it's a certificated security, uncertificated, or if it's an entitlement account, if it's a brokerage. So you see it starts out control of a certificated security. You have control if it's in bearer form and you deliver it to the purchaser. Okay, so that's one way to get control. It's like a possession. That goes on. You can also have control through by endorsing it over. If it's not in bearer form, then you endorse it over and make it payable to the person you're giving it to. If it is uncertificated, you're going to just make an entry in the ledger that the secured party has ownership or control over it, because you don't have anything physical to hand over. But our focus is the security entitlement. And what do you do? So B is the certificated security. C is uncertificated security. D is the security entitlement. So let's focus on that. How do you get control? And you'll see here, and also with respect to deposit accounts, there are multiple ways to get control. So your decision when deciding how to perfect won't only be a decision between filing a financing statement and getting control, but it will be between filing a financing statement and multiple methods of getting control. So you got to decide which is the best. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Riley
Sure.
said he got booted out and needs let back in.
Thank you. I wish there were a little bell or something so I didn't have to rely on you guys, but thank you for taking care of that, Nate. I appreciate it. All right.
Thank you.
Problem.
You're back in? All right.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank Nate. He really saved you. He unlocked the door. Okay, D. A purchaser has control of a security entitlement. If, all right, looks like we have 3 methods of control. 1, the purchaser becomes the entitlement holder. That is, you tell the broker to put your account in the secured party's name. Okay. It's one way to get control, and that's obviously probably the secured party would like that most of all, to become the name, the owner of it in name. That's terrific. Of course, that doesn't mean that the secured party can drain it. Now that they're the owner, they can't go and sell the stocks or anything. No, they may be in name the owner of it, but they can only get to it if there's a default on the payment obligation. So you're an owner, but you really can't enjoy the collateral until there's default. So you can become the entitlement holder. All right. Number 2, the securities intermediary has agreed that it will comply with entitlement orders originated by the purchaser without further consent by the entitlement holder. An entitlement order is just an order to do something with the stocks, an order to sell them, for example. So this is what's called a control agreement, and we're going to have a control agreement with deposit accounts as well. We'll see there are a lot of parallels with deposit accounts once we get through investment property. It's a control agreement, and what you want to do is you want to have the 3 parties sign it, so that the entitlement holder consents to you, the secured party, having the power to sell the stocks, to issue these orders. So you want their consent, so you want the debtor to sign it. And then you want the intermediary, the securities intermediary, that is the broker, to sign it, so that the broker knows that it is legally required to obey any entitlement order to sell that the secured party sends. But again, the intermediary, the broker, can only obey those orders, and the secured party can only issue an order to sell after default. Okay, so you can become the owner, the holder of the account. You can enter into a control agreement, which I think is probably the most typical way. Or 3, another person has control of the security entitlement on behalf of the purchaser, or having previously acquired control of the security entitlement, acknowledges that it has control on behalf of the purchaser. And of course, the purchaser here, it's that technical definition of purchaser, which includes secured party. So all this is saying, this 3rd one is really just is saying that you can perfect by having an agent get control of the brokerage account on your behalf, which is really kind of goes without saying. Whatever you can do, you can have an agent do on your behalf, but it's added here for good measure. So what does that leave us? With 3 methods of perfection: filing a financing statement, making the secured party the owner of the account, or entering into a control agreement. Okay, so I guess with that, we can jump into this problem. Alrighty, go to my magic list here, and I'll ask Riley. Riley, are you here on the line there? Can you read out problem 79 for us and take a stab at it?
Yes, no problem.
All right.
Computer World Inc. Wait, I'm sorry. Are we on 80 or 79?
I'm sorry. Yeah, 79. Mr. Gold.
Okay, no, that's my fault. Okay, Mr. Goldberry instructed his stockbroker, Bing Bong Bell, to buy 100 shares of Utopia Ltd. stock and place them in his account at BB&B. Bing Bong and Bell bought the shares and kept them in the account it held at Clearing Corporation, but marked its records to indicate that Goldberry was really the owner of this number of shares of the stock. In this case, Article 8 would deem Mr. Goldberry an entitlement holder who has the securities entitlement in a security account with a securities intermediary, C8102. which defines all these terms. Goldberry went to ONB and asked to borrow money using the above 100 shares as collateral. You are counsel for ONB and are in charge of making sure that the bank's security interest is perfected, which means getting control over the security entitlement. Look at 8106D in its official comment for and advise the bank. Which of the possible methods is the safest for your client?
Okay.
Yeah, so we just discussed the three 106D methods of control.
Yeah.
The safest, let's see here. I think the safest would be to become the entitlement holder. Although that's probably the most restrictive too. Like you said earlier, the control agreements are probably more practical. But again, I don't know. I think just from reading this, it kind of looks like regardless of which one you go with, you have control. So I'm not sure if one is, if one notates more control over the other.
Yeah. So this is a question of priority now. We know the methods of perfection. Now we got to figure out, is one method of perfection better than another?
Right.
That's one concern, I guess, and that's primary concern. You want to have the strongest type of perfection that defeats any other perfected secured parties. But then you may also consider non-legal issues as well, like cost or risk. I personally would not want to make a bank the owner of my, brokerage account. It would make me a little nervous. Of course, I'm not supposed to do anything until default, but what if they're bad citizens and they raid my account and the broker goes along with it? I mean, it would just make me a little nervous. So I would avoid that if at all possible, just for practical reasons. A control agreement is expensive. You got to pay a lawyer to negotiate, to draft it, negotiate it. And so there's another practical reason why you might want to shy away from that. But the most important is which is preferable from the standpoint of priority. And let's get into that, Riley. Let's look at let's get it
So
at 9-328. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first question is if another creditor also gets control over the rights of the 100 shares, which has priority? They point us to 9-328-2. Because this is a security entitlement, we would go to 9-328-2B, which then lists a couple rules that state who has the priority. So the first one, if a secured party obtained under D1, which is the entitlement holder, the secured party becomes the person for which the security account is maintained. So it looks like, based on that rule, entitlement holder would be the first in line for priority. And then after that, it looks like it goes in time, because rank 328-2 says rank according to priority in time of. So that modifies the whole rule. So I think if you're not an entitlement holder, it would, if you have control over outside of one, it would be whoever was perfected first.
Yeah, that's right. First to control wins. And let's look at, we skipped over one, which is okay for this problem, but it's worth noting. It says that a security interest held by a secured party having control over an investment property has priority over a security interest held by a secured party that does not have control of the investment property, which means basically control defeats a financing statement.
Sure.
If you don't have control, you just filed a financing statement, that's okay. You'll be perfected, but you'll lose to anyone that has control, regardless of the type of control. And then if you have two parties that have control, it's the first one to acquire control, right?
Okay.
Regardless of how you do it.
Okay, so just to clarify, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you have control. It's just the first to control wins.
Right.
Okay. 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 And then letter B, if Goldberry borrows money from B, B, and B after O and B has control and grants B, B, and B a security interest in all stocks held in his account with them, is B, B, and B security interest superior to O and B? And then they point us to 328.3, which actually says a security interest held by securities intermediary in a security entitlement or securities account maintained with the securities intermediary has priority over conflicting security interests. So I think based on that rule, B, B, and B would have priority even though O and B had control first.
Yes, the intermediary gets priority, the broker. Yeah, exactly right. It's kind of like I don't know. To me, it reminds me of like a purchase money security interest. It's that broker is maybe that's not a good analogy. I don't want to confuse you guys. But the broker who loans money with collateral against the stocks in that account held by that broker, that broker will have priority over anyone else that has control. So yeah, the intermediary is and it has kind of super priority. So that's kind of like, I think, why purchase money security interest came to mind. The broker who loans money against securities held by that broker will have super priority with respect to those securities. Yeah, exactly right. And that's in 2, right? A security interest held, or 3, security interest held by a securities intermediary in a security entitlement or securities account maintained with a securities intermediary has priority over a conflicting security interest held by another secured party. So it's just a straight out super priority rule. Okay, so we know there are 2 ways to get control. We know that control defeats filing financing statement, and we know that the intermediary has super priority over the stocks that are held by that intermediary. Those are the rules that I want you to know for investment property, and I'm not going to test you on certificated, uncertificated stuff. Okay, good job, Riley. If there are no questions, we will rocket ahead to deposit accounts. And deposit accounts, as I said, differ from the securities entitlements in that filing a financing statement won't do it. You have to have control. Before I go into the methods of control, I'll just make a few sort of general observations about deposit accounts as security. I think I've mentioned this before, but it merits repetition, and that is that deposit accounts are terrible collateral. You really don't want to rely on deposit accounts. It may seem like good collateral, cash is king, but the problem is that if the debtor is crooked or whatever and writes checks out of their deposit account, that money's gone. Just like cash. Cash seems like great collateral, but as soon as the debtor hands that cash to someone else, buys something with it, that cash is gone. Normally, the security interest survives upon the disposition of collateral, so you can chase it in the hands of someone who buys your collateral, but not true with cash. Cash, as we all know, you don't have to worry about someone coming after your cash. It's free of any security interest as soon as it's paid out. So it's good collateral. if it doesn't disappear. It disappears very easily, and then there's no way to recoup it. So keep that in mind. You still try to, you understand that it could disappear, but if you can, you go ahead and take it as collateral anyway. With everything else as a bank, take security interest in deposit account as well. It may not be there when you go for it, but it may be there. So don't rely on it, but no harm in taking a security interest in it anyway. So how do you take security interest in it? Well, that's easy. You just describe it as deposit accounts in your security agreement. And then you want to get control over it. And now we got to figure out, how do you get control over deposit accounts? And there are two ways. With investment property, there are three ways with deposit accounts. And number 3 comes up frequently. It's that third time's the charm. But there are 3 ways. And for those methods of control, let's see. 9, I think it's 910. Is it 9108? It may not be right. No, that's the sufficiency of
9104.
9104. Thank you. Yes. 9104. Tried to grab my dog so I could show you my dog, but she took off. Let me close the door here. Yep, 9104. Absolutely right. Okay. Why can't I find it here? There it is. Control of a deposit account. 3 ways. 1, the secured party is the bank with which the deposit account is maintained. This is the maintaining bank. That is, if you are so you're PNC and you loan Professor Sundahl $10,000 and you take a security interest in Professor Sundahl's account that is held by PNC, automatic, you have control and perfection. They don't have to do anything. Just being the maintaining bank gives you control and perfection. So being the maintaining bank is one way to do it. If the secured party is the bank that holds the deposit account, then you have control automatically. All right, number 2, the debtor, secured party, and bank agree in an authenticated record that the bank will comply with instructions. That sounds familiar? So it's a control agreement, just like with investment property. It's going to be a 3-party agreement, and basically means that upon default, the secured party can call up the bank and say, please transfer all of the cash in Professor Sundahl's account to my account. Okay, so control agreement is another way to do it. And then finally, and this is also reminiscent of investment property, if the secured party becomes a customer. That is, you put the secured party on the account as an owner of the account. Again, I wouldn't feel that comfortable with it to give that kind of power to a secured party to become joint owner of my bank account, but that's one way of getting control. So we have those 3 types of control: maintaining bank, control agreement, and becoming an owner of the account. Okay. Okay. So then the question is going to be, which is preferable? And again, there are non-legal reasons why you might choose one versus another. Again, a control agreement is expensive to draft and negotiate. Although the bank probably, has model forms, so it depends how much negotiation is going to go on. But that's the most expensive option. And then you may not like having the bank as an owner of your account. So that might be another concern. So you got to decide which way to get control if you're the secured party. To understand that, let's jump into problem 80. And I think everyone has 3 checks at this point on my magic list here. Oh, everyone but Olivia. Olivia, are you there?
Hi, sorry.
Oh, there you are, Olivia, yeah. Okay, good. Yes, you need your 3rd check. So why don't you go ahead and read out 80 and give it a shot.
All right. Computer World Inc. desires to borrow money from an investment Bank of America, which will grant it a revolving line of credit secured party by a bank account that Computer World maintains at Last National Bank. You're the attorney for Investment Bank of America. Advise the bank how it can perfect its security interest in this bank account and which of the methods of control specified in 9104 would be the safest form of security. If Computer World later borrows money from Last National Bank and grants the bank a security interest in the account carried there, would Last National Bank have priority over your client? And I think just based on what we were talking about, that since the bank account is maintained at Last National, then they would have priority over, which I forget their name already, over Investment Bank of America.
Okay, so we have a Computer World. They're borrowing money from Investment Bank of America. The account is at Last National Bank. So you're the secured party as Investment Bank, right? And they want to get control over this bank account at Last National Bank. And so, yeah, they could become are they the maintaining bank? This is an investment bank is going to make the loan and take a security interest in the account at Last National.
Mm-hmm.
So is the investment bank the maintaining bank, or is Last National the maintaining bank? Where is the account?
Last National Bank is the
Last National is the maintaining bank.
Mm-hmm.
So investment bank won't be able to get control through that method.
No.
Right, so if that's off the table, which method would you advise the bank to use?
I think I would say maybe do an agreement between all parties.
You could have a control agreement, or you can ask to be added as one of the account holders on the account at Last National Bank. So you have those 2 options, but which is the better one? And now this is going to be a question. You can factor in these practical realities, but you want to know which is preferable from the standpoint of priority. Which is better? Does the party with the control agreement beat other types of control, or is it being an account holder? Is that the best type of control? And for that, where do we go, Olivia?
9104.
9104. Well, yeah, that's the types of control. That's right. But now we're getting to priority. So we need the priority rules for deposit accounts. That's in 9328, I believe. No, 327. 327. One day I will memorize all the code sections, but not today. Okay, 9327. So here we go. I'll read them out here, and then we'll come back to you, Olivia. Okay.
Okay.
So here are the rules. 1, a security interest held by a secured party having control of the deposit account under Section 9104 has priority over a conflicting security interest held by a secured party that does not have control. So that again is it's it's not going to be a financing statement. We know that financing statements don't work, but this
Right.
contemplates that scenario where someone might have a perfected security interest in the deposit account as proceeds. If someone has control over it, they will defeat that person that does not have control.
Right.
So that's the first rule. Control defeats anyone that doesn't have control. Number 2, except as stated in 3 and 4, security interests perfected by control rank according to priority and time of obtaining control. So that's the next rule we get is the time of control. Okay. Which, for example, that would apply if you have 2 secured parties that have control agreements.
And whoever got it.
Yeah, whoever entered, you're going to ask for the agreement and look at the date. And so that's the rule that would apply in that situation. All right. 3, a security interest held by the bank with which the deposit account is maintained, so this is the maintaining bank, has priority over conflicting security interests held by another secured party. So maintaining bank seems to be at the top of the heap.
Right, which is still Last National.
Which is Last National, right. And then we'll have one more. A security interest perfected by control under 9104A3, which is becoming a customer, one of the account holders, has priority over a security interest held by the bank with which the deposit account is maintained. So being an account holder is number 1. That's the best way to have to ensure your priority. You want to be an account holder. You want your name added to the account. And then that will defeat anyone that's the maintaining bank or anyone that has a control agreement. Maintaining bank is the second in line. They will defeat anyone with a control agreement. Control agreement is, well, they'll defeat someone that has security interest, perfect security interest as proceeds, but that's it. So control agreement is the worst way. You want to, if you're the secured party, you want to be on that account is what you want to be. And
I
then
just want to be the account holder.
going to be
Okay.
you want to be the account holder. Right, so it's a question of priority. Right. Okay, so that's what you want to be. The debtor may say no.
Mhm.
And then what? Like, what if they come to me and I say, Professor Sundahl, we'll loan you that $10,000, but we want to be an account holder in your account with Fifth Third or wherever I have my account. And what if I say, no way, I'm just not comfortable with that? What would you say then as that secured party?
Then we're not loaning you the money.
Yeah, right. No, we're not loaning you the money. Okay, that's fine. They might say, well, okay, we'll just enter into a control agreement,
Okay.
but that would be stupid, I think.
Right, because then you don't have any way of collecting.
Yeah, and yeah. Well, just because control agreement is weak, because someone may lend money and be added later on as a customer on that account over which you have a control agreement, but you're going to lose to that person. So it would be risky.
Yes.
So that's the answer to that one. Yeah, and then what about B? Or the second part? Is there a second part? Yeah. If Computer World now later borrows money from Last National Bank and grants the bank a security interest in the account carried there, would Last National have priority over your clients? So now we have Computer World borrowing money first from Investment Bank, secured on the account held by Last National, and let's say you become an account holder. So investment bank will become an account holder at Last National. And then you go to Last National and you borrow money from them, and they take a security interest in your bank account in Last National, and they, of course, are perfected automatically because they're the maintaining bank. Right. And then you go bankrupt, and you have the two secured parties, one with the name on the account and one as the maintaining bank. Who wins, Olivia?
The one who is the account holder with the name on the bank, or with the name on the account.
That's right. That's right. So what would you do if you were this second bank, if you were Last National, and you wanted to loan this money, but you wanted to make sure that you were first in line? Is there any way to get first in line, to cut in line and get ahead of investment bank that is a customer on the account occupying this high point of super priority? Is there any way to knock them off their perch and become king of the hill? What would you say, Olivia? Anything that you can do?
I think also just putting Last Nationals, I keep on repeating myself, so I'm sorry, but putting...
I do too. I repeat myself constantly. You guys notice that. I mean, it's a way I try to teach you. But yeah, go ahead.
So in general, what I took from all the control stuff is, if you're an account holder, that is like, control gives you super priority, right? But if you're an account holder, if you do have your name on the account, then that's also a way to beat out the super priority of control. Yeah,
but would you win? I mean, yeah, you could add your name to the account, and then you'd have two parties with who are account holders. It's possible. Right. You could do that. And then how would you resolve that conflict? Who wins if you have the same type of control?
Still the maintaining bank, right?
No. Right, there is a maintaining bank, but we know the account holder defeats the maintaining bank. So to try to fix that, the maintaining bank becomes an account holder, and now we have two account holders. What's the priority rule?
Oh, the timing, whoever got there, sorry.
Actually, it's timing. No, you're right. The timing. We just learned this, but yeah. Then you just looked at the time. Whoever had control first, the first person to be put on the account would win. So that doesn't solve the problem. There really is no way to solve the problem. So, short of an intercreditor agreement or having that other bank terminate its security interest. So it's good to be the customer on the account. That's the way to do it. But still, deposit accounts are not a safe kind of collateral because they can disappear very easily. I've gone over time. I apologize. I thank you guys for hanging in there with me. We don't have to make up any time. We've I think done the full 75 minutes. We're done with the assignment on control. We'll go on Monday and do the next assignment, which is the next page, buyers. That's one of my favorite. So please prepare the material on buyers. We'll probably get through the whole assignment. And in the meantime, I will be checking the discussion board. Please post questions. You can still send them privately, but it's good to share the knowledge. And I'll also be working on posting the videos. Okay. And Ashley, if you want to hang on, or anyone wants to hang on to go over the exam, you can do so. The rest of you are free to go. All right. I'll see you all Monday. They're dropping like flies. Ashley's there. I see Roanna. Are you hanging in there with us, Roanna? Okay.
Yeah, because I was stuck in the waiting room for quite a while, so.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I'm going to post the video so you can see it there. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully it wasn't too long. But yeah, let's go through this exam. I think both of you guys did very well. 8 questions, so I'll just read through them here. How accurate does the debtor's name need to be in a financing statement? The search logic test. Just as long as when you search under the real name, the legal name, as long as the financing statement turns up, then it's sufficient. So search logic test. Number 2, dealt with not the debtor's name, but the secured party's name. We have PNC Bank filing a financing statement against its debtor, Gummy LLC, to perfect the security interest on the debtor's inventory of gummy candy. The financing statement gave the secured party's name as PND rather than PNC. Is the financing statement sufficient? And the answer is yes. How accurate the secured party's name need to be? It doesn't have to be accurate at all. It can be really anything. It's never seriously misleading. You do have to put something down in that field, but it doesn't have to be accurate at all. 3, what are the statutory elements for the perfection of a security interest? Attachment, and then one additional step, unless it's perfected automatically. That would be a perfectly acceptable answer. Or you could list out that there are multiple ways to perfect by control, possession, etc. But it's attachment and another step or automatic. 4, does a debtor need to have an absolute ownership right in collateral in order for a security interest to attach? No. It goes back to the cattle case where the debtor didn't own the cattle, but did have a right to a portion of the proceeds upon sale. So you don't need an absolute ownership right, but you need some kind of interest. And then that limited interest will be the collateral. All right, we're halfway through. Did you guys were okay with the time that was allotted for this exam, or did you feel time pressure?
I thought it was okay.
All
Yeah, I thought it was good.
right. Okay, good. Number 5, imagine that a security agreement describes the collateral as all inventory owned by debtor. All right, this is, right, this gets to after acquired. Will the security interest, if it just says all inventory owned by debtor with no after acquired language, excuse me, will the security interest attach only to the inventory that's owned by the debtor at the moment the agreement was signed, or will it attach to inventory acquired later? And the answer is that it will attach to after acquired inventory. And it's an exception to the rule that you need that language, and that's due to the high turnover rate of inventory. That it's expected that the parties intended it to attach to after acquired inventory as well. Otherwise, it would just be worthless because the inventory is sold off. Number 6, where is the sole proprietorship located for purposes of filing a financing statement? And it's in the state where the individual resides, where he lives. Sole proprietorship is indistinguishable legally from the individual. 7, is it sufficient to describe collateral as all debtors' assets in a financing statement? Super generic description? Yes, it's okay in a financing statement. Not allowed for a security agreement. This was one of those questions where I did allow you to be conclusory because there's really not much to say except, yes, it's okay. And then finally, provide an example of a security interest that perfects automatically upon attachment. And most people put down a purchase money security interest in consumer goods. And some of you put down the sale of a promissory note, which is also fine. That was it. All right.
Are we able to see our exams to see like which ones we got wrong or?
Yeah, what I did was, I didn't have them physically, so I couldn't write on them. I had the electronic ones, but I kept also electronic notes and comments. So I can send you, Ronna, maybe I should send it to everyone, the comments that I made on your paper.
Yeah, that would be helpful, I think.
Will you do that for you guys? Okay. Okay. Actually, I could probably do it. Yeah, I think I'll just send out my comments, all of them, because it's just by exam number. So
Right, it'll stay anonymous.
yeah, it'll stay anonymous. Yeah. Okay. I'll do that. Good idea.
Cool,
All right,
thank you.
guys. Sure thing. I'll see you Monday. Have a good weekend.
Great, thanks, you too.
Sure.